Hi, welcome to the Momwire series. Hey, I got a question. What if the impossible happened to you? How would you overcome it? I mean, how would you even start to overcome that? It's an interesting question to think about, and I am welcoming today Cyndee Jardieu. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. And she really literally had the impossible happen to her. She wrote a beautiful book on it to check out. It's called Detour to Happiness. And thank you, Cyndee. She's going to share her story with us today. So tell us the story.
Well, around April 14th, 1995, I woke up and it was time for soccer practice. I had 4 kids. The oldest one was 6, and there was a 4-year-old, a 20-month-old, and a 12-day-old. And so my husband and I were taking turns because I had my little Emma in with me and nursing all night. He said that he would take care of the boys, and he was reading a story to them the night before and fell asleep with them. So I let him sleep. So we took turns on the weekends. It was my turn to get up with the kids, his turn to sleep in. And then I fed all the kids, and I said, Zach, go get Dad. It's time to go to soccer. And when he went in to get to his dad, he came back and said, Dad won't wake up. And at first I was kind of angry, like, oh my gosh, I fed these kids. I got up. I was up all night nursing. And so I stormed down there, and I opened up the door, and I saw him on the floor. And he was laying on his stomach, and I was getting ready to say, what are you doing? And I noticed that his back was all bruised. And when I went to, I turned into mother mode at that moment, right? So I go, oh, honey, what's wrong? And I reached out to touch him, and he was hard like cement. And then I knew. And so I yelled at the kids to leave the room, go in my room and watch cartoons, and don't come out. And so, as you can imagine, chaos ensued. And
just the presence to have the kids go in the next room is amazing to me. I mean, I still have the goosebumps, and I know this story.
And so, starting that whole process and starting that journey of being a single parent with 4 small children. I didn't really have an education. I went to equestrian school. Let me tell you how much that'll make you.
Just horsing around. Oh, sorry.
Right. You had to go there, right?
Forgive me.
Okay, good for that one. So I just was thinking, well, I have these 4 kids, 6 and under, and I went to equestrian school. So how am I going to make enough money to support us? And so then that started a whole journey for me on self-discovery and overcoming being a victim, because boy, did I tell you, I had the victim mentality for probably a year or 2 before I pulled myself out of it and started changing my attitude and my outlook.
Yeah. So that's just a normal human response, because like you were indeed a victim. Your husband suddenly died, and that is the impossible. And that's not the plan. That's not what we're doing here. Husband doesn't die young and leave me alone. No, I have a 12-day-old baby. I'm supposed to get sleep. You're supposed to take the kids.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Right. And so the fact is, you were a victim. I know that has a certain connotation now, but you were a victim. And that implies almost, to me, it kind of bugs me in a way like, oh, you have a certain amount of time to get out of that and get over that. Mm-hmm. Well, isn't it okay to be at your own pace?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I told you, it took me a couple years. You actually have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was tired of being sad all the time. And then I started thinking, well, do I want the kids to grow up and go, well, we never knew Dad, but all we knew is that Mom was sad her whole life after he died. I didn't want that for them. Mm-hmm. And so I really had to make a choice. And I didn't realize before that I get to choose. I can't get to choose what happens to me, but I do get to choose how I respond. And that took me really 2 years, because I was on a 2-year journey those first 2 years to make you as miserable as I was. So I thought, if I'm going to be miserable, I want everybody around me to be miserable. And then I realized slowly but surely that I get to have a choice in this. And, it's a different time span for everyone. It took me 2 years. It can take people more time. It can take less time. And some people will, quite frankly, never get out of that mentality. So it's personal for sure for everybody.
Oh yeah. And that you did have that kind of wake up to your awareness, going, wait, what am I creating here? Who am I being? I'm sure you even had a certain tribe which looks completely different today and
Oh,
thereafter. Right.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
And that was all your decision.
It was, I was caught in a bunch of limiting beliefs. My growing up life, my dad was not a great guy, and when it was time to think about college, he said, "No, girls don't go to college. They just grow up and get married and have babies." And so that was the belief. And so what did I do? I grew up, I got married, and I had babies. And it wasn't till after I was forced, and I mean forced, to become my own person
Yeah.
that growth took place. And that, unfortunately, that included the death of my first husband.
Yeah. Well, and you could be still stuck in that same place today. But
Sure.
again, it was that an awareness, an openness to your awareness, a belief in a choice. Like, I'm looking at this and I want to see something different. Now, how do I go about it? Whether you're a mega PhD or never been to school or whatever, don't we all walk in those shoes? Don't we all, like, at some point go, what am I doing and why? And is this what I want to create?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it took a while. Really, it's taken, I don't think we ever get to the end, right? We're always recreating ourselves and growing and stretching, and doesn't matter how old we are. And you have to be open to being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, and we usually, and yes, okay. So that's so what I think about momming too is sometimes I think some of us, me included, like I'm a recovering this too, is like we think life is going to be supposed to be, and we're entitled for it to be fairly smooth. And, okay, yeah, giving birth is uncomfortable and recovering from that and having kids and stuff. Yeah, there's discomfort. And yes, they scream in stores and yes, and yes, and yeah. And then they become teenagers and oh my goodness, they just drove away in the car and yada, yada, yada. But there's no guarantee of smooth sailing. There's no guarantee of comfort. The only guarantee, again, is our response to all of that, the ups and the downs. And so, choosing into what you chose into, like you said, gosh, it is a lifetime growth opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, your kids are lucky to have you at the helm.
Well,
I would say,
because I tell them all the time.
And sometimes they even agree, but only after I beat them a few times.
Only on my birthday.
Yeah, I once was writing and I was like laughing at myself going, why I'm trying to earn all those sayings in the Mother's Day cards, How, am I measuring up? Go get some and say, oh, I guess I got to do that today. Yeah, so that's it. That would be another question in all of that. You're flying solo, you've got 4 kids, you're adjusting, you're noticing, you're changing and supporting yourself. I think everybody watching, and my initial reaction is, how the heck did you make ends meet? What kind of support system did you have? So what happened?
Well, my parents and my support system was up in Massachusetts, and I chose to stay in Texas. And so I took odd jobs. I was a janitor. I cleaned toilets. I worked at church, and I had some wonderful support from people I didn't even know. There's one story that I love to tell that I got a call one time that after Dave died, and they said, "Hey, we're a bunch of folks here in Rainbow, Texas, and we heard about your husband dying, and we heard he didn't have any insurance, and you've got 4 small kids, and we've taken up a donation, and we'd like to know where would you like us to send it?" And my first response was, well, that's wonderful, but where is Rainbow, Texas? Because I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they said, well, it's about an hour and a half from Dallas-Fort Worth. And I'm like, well, how did you hear about me? An hour and a half from Dallas-Fort Worth. And they said, well, a truck driver told us. Dang. Okay, so the world works in mysterious ways. So I did have somebody left diapers on the door stoop for my little daughter Emma for a year. And every 3 months the sizes would change. I never knew who did that. A radio station, a local radio station, they mowed my yard for a year. So there was a lot of it. It does take a village. Even if you have your spouse and everything, we need all eyes and all hands on deck when we're raising children. And I think that's why I think we get in trouble when we think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We need people.
That's so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful reminder to me too, like meal trains and all that kind of stuff. And you don't really know what somebody's going through, and just villaging up, if I can say that, is
Absolutely.
such a great thing, because we all, whether we need it or not, and there's a power in receiving that too. Like, oh, there used to be this mentality, I don't accept charity, but there's a power in receiving that, even to the point of letting that person give. They feel so good, right? I mean, that must have been so cool for that diaper, not thief, that diaper lever,
Diaper angel.
Diaper angel, yeah, to like speak up and go, yeah, come on, kids, do it, yeah, and then like ring and run,
And that was one of the really hard lessons for me, was to receive. Because when we receive, that's such a position of vulnerability. That's why I think a lot of women or men like to be in control, because that's a position of power. Regardless of what we're doing, I'm going to tell you what to eat, what to wear. We're going to go here. We're going to go there. The house is going to, these are all my choices. And when we say, gosh, I just can't do it on my own, that's very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult for lots of folks, not just women, but lots of folks to accept that. And so, there's a saying that you should be a gracious receiver as well as giver.
Yeah. Yeah. I follow a lot of the Brene Brown writings and works. I think she's
awesome.
The bomb. Yeah. And her discussion and research on vulnerability is really how powerful it is and how brave it is. Yes. So once again, my friend, I celebrate your bravery in all of that. I do want to bring up, so not only did you have that impossible, shocking situation, but then tell us your 12-day-old baby, then you discovered.
Yeah, when she was, now I don't remember a lot of her first year, because quite frankly, I don't remember all I know is I fed everybody, because they're still here to this day. But I just don't have a clear memory of that. But I did, when I started coming out of the fog, I noticed that something was not quite right with Emma. And she wouldn't play with other kids. She would have these meltdowns that were like supersonic. The kind you go to the grocery store and somebody's throwing a fit and you're going, dang, that's a bad parent. I would slap that kid's bottom. Well, it's just nothing worked for her. And so around about 3 years old, she was diagnosed with autism. And I had never really, back 23, 24 years ago, that really wasn't on the radar as much. And so I wasn't familiar with that. And I got to tell you, I felt a little picked on. Like, okay, now wait, there's this husband that died, and now I've got this. Now, how many more burdens can I take?
Don't ask a question. Don't ask.
Yeah, right. Well, and I don't like that saying that God doesn't give you any more than you can handle. I don't like that saying. I'm like, okay, I don't want any more. But yeah, so that was a lot of soul searching. And I gave up. I had to let go. One thing that propelled me forward through all of this, and whenever I get in a sticky situation, is I let go of the why, because I think we get mucked and mired in the why. Yeah. We can't see beyond that. Now, there are things, of course, I needed to know why my husband died to make sure it wasn't something that I needed to take care of for my children. Right. But that kind of out there why, like, why did it happen to me? No one says when you win the lottery, why did that happen to me? But so I just had to I thought, gosh, if God came down and said, Cyndee, this is why I took Dave, so you'd be a better person or a better mother, or I need another angel, or it wouldn't mean anything to me, because I'm human and I want what I want. Mm-hmm. And so I found great relief and release in letting go of the why, knowing that sometimes there aren't answers to things. And we can't move forward when we're stuck in that muck going, well, why'd that happen to me? Why'd that happen to me? And so I have many things throughout my life that has proven that to be true. So I had to roll around. You got to roll around in your misery, right? When you hear something bad, or I'm not saying ignore those feelings. Roll around in it, feel bad in it, cry, scream, do what you need to do. Acknowledge it, because those things need to be acknowledged. And then kind of put your big girl pants on and figure out how we're going to take care of it. And so that's what I had to do with Dave, and then that's what I had to do with Emma. Yeah. Go, okay, this sucks. I'm going to cry about it. I'm going to scream. I'm going to feel like a victim again. But now, what do I do about it? And even though I can't fix it, there is something magical about doing.
Mm-hmm.
Doing something, even if it's the wrong thing, doing something. And so that's kind of my mantra. Unless it's something that I need to know the why of, so something doesn't, happen again, or somebody's health. Otherwise, I really, really work on letting it go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. And I think that really can be translated into the big things like you're discussing, and even into our little things like noticing this trigger or this repeating thought over and over and over again. And this is happening, and why, and why, and why, and why, when it's like, well, hey, hang on, time out. Now what? Okay, this keeps happening. Now what? There's a reason it keeps happening. Something needs to change. And if you move on from there, you're not just cycling through the why or the letting it happen over and going. It's the doing something that you said, right. Even if it's small, right?
Yeah, and I just noticed the past 24 years that what I focus on grows. So if I'm focusing on being miserable, I'm going to be really good at it. I'm going to feel really bad.
You're good at everything you do, even making myself miserable.
Right. And so I think, okay, well, this sucks, but I'm not a Pollyanna, but what can I do to make this suck less?
Yeah.
And
well, you are. I've always known you to be a down-to-earth gal. I mean, just like okay, yeah, this is the situation, and now what? And yeah, down-to-earth gal, I guess, is the best thing I can say. And you cut to the chase, and like I like to say, you get to the heart of the matter, and then it's a decision point, and then an action, perhaps, or at least knowing. I love the way it's like, okay, at least we know. Is there something in his DNA that caused him to die early, or was it just something, a surprise, a fluke, weird, perfectly wrong thing,
Right. And in the end, if it's not something medical, does the why really help? That's just my personal opinion. Is the why going to make you feel any better? I don't know.
It depends. I think it depends what it is. I think we seek for the things like, in my life, I've experienced miscarriages, and it's a difficult time. It's a sad time. It's a time that can really bring you down, and you do get on the why. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Why did I make this happen? And then one day you wake up and you go, nothing. I didn't do anything wrong, and you move on, or you move on.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, it's all about moving on. It's all about moving on and letting go. I think Lady Coco Chanel said, life is all about the fine mingling of holding on and letting go.
That's awesome. I love that. I was going to say, I have Coco Chanel is up there. I have a quote from her. But I love that. The fine mingling of moving.
The fine art of holding on and letting go.
Love that. Okay, that's going in my quote book.
There you go.
Oh, I love it so much. Yeah. So what now, all these years, all these lessons, all these things that you have done and learned and stuff, I happen to know you help others now. You've got retreats and things going on. What are your goodies?
Yes. Well, I found along the way that my experiences could be helpful to others. So I started speaking to women's groups, and then I went on local television to kind of just share my story about, you can get through it too. There's no situation in the world that someone hasn't experienced. So even though sometimes when we're in a trauma, we feel like nobody can feel like us. But the matter is, there are women who have lost a husband with 6 kids and a day-old baby. I mean, everything has been done. But when we're in that, it feels like we're alone. Yeah. I didn't have any tools. Like, I didn't know that I could meditate, or I could, all these things that I could do. Work on my exercise, work on my food intake, work about my environment, work on the people that I hung around with. I didn't know any of that. And so as I started going through my journey to get back to happy, I found these tools, and I wanted to share the tools with women. So I hold workshops on, my belief is, in order to live a more joy-filled life, you need 3 things: spiritual, emotional health. And that doesn't necessarily mean God. For me, it's God. But if you want to be connected to Mother Earth, we just need to be connected to something higher than ourselves. And so spiritual, emotional health, physical health. and financial health. If one of those is askew, it makes it very difficult to live with more joy and happiness. And so through the year, I do workshops on each of those topics. And then it culminates at the end of the year in October. So this year it'll be the October 7th through the 10th in my Flourish retreat. And so I get speakers to come in and talk on those topics. And this year I'm very excited to have world-renowned speaker Chad Hymas to be the keynote speaker this year. I've been very blessed. Last year I had Ariel Ford. She wrote Wabi Sabi Love. And we have yoga. We have a private chef. The grounds are just fantastic. Women have their own room. And it's just a really good time for women to grow and learn and search.
Yeah. I love that. And I love it from the journey of riding solo to realizing and seeing what you needed. You and I met at an inner circle group, which is my first big step into self-care and awareness and on my journey. And I met you there. So we were both looking to up level. And I just really celebrate and applaud all the ways that you have, including now what you bring back to all these other women and your tribe. And it's such a wonderful thing. So thank you so much for joining the kitchen table, as I like to say, hanging out here today.
You're welcome.
sharing your story. And I would love to include some of your information in case, somebody would like to contact you and hear more about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So celebrate you. And here's to overcoming.
Absolutely. You can do it. That's my motto.
Yes, you can. Thanks, Cyndee. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Remember to subscribe.